Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my absolute pleasure to have as my guest, Susan Belly Verree. Belly is a teacher, single mother, breast cancer survivor, and author of Belly Knows Best, a deeply personal story about healing, identity, resilience, food, and rebuilding life after trauma. After years as a high-achieving director, Ironman athlete, and self-described perfectionist, Belly's world shifted following her diagnosis. What followed was not only physical healing, but a journey of rediscovering purpose, creativity, and self-trust. Through storytelling, cooking, and honest conversations, she inspires audiences to move through fear, embrace change, and understand that healing is never linear. Her perspective is raw, authentic, empowering, and deeply relatable. Belly's signature message: it doesn't rain every day. Things will get better. You just have to hope. And with that, Belly, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. I've been looking forward to our conversation for some time now.
So have I. Thank you for having me, Dave.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And we were introduced through Nicole, your publicist,
Yes.
and she sent me just an inquiry with your background about whether or not you would be a good fit for the podcast and if I would consider having you on as a guest contributor. And after researching your background and understanding what your challenges you had to transcend, and certainly following our introductory conversation, I knew you were going to be a good fit and align with the other guests who have had similar journeys to you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to covering all kinds of territory with you today.
Oh, same here.
All right. So, Belly, my first question for you is please tell our listeners about the major experience or experiences that have shaped your life path and your life passions today.
I was born in Los Angeles to immigrant parents. And, that in itself shaped me and my world very, very much. Later down the line, I became a teacher, which reinforced a lot of things in my life in terms of storytelling. And I've always been a fan of storytelling because I am also a history teacher. And then later on, I was an athlete and I also am a cancer survivor. So other major things are probably like having my son. That would be a big, big major point too, which changed my life completely.
And you're raising him as a single mother, am I correct?
Correct. Yeah. But his father's in the picture. Yeah. But we're not together. So.
I think sometimes co-parenting tends to work better when people are living together.
Right. Right. I agree.
So tell us how being a cancer survivor has impacted your values and beliefs about yourself and your priorities in life.
From a long time ago, I want to say like in my 20s to my 30s, I've always had this idea that we had to be everything. Achievements, external accomplishments, recognition from other people and everything. And then when cancer happened, I realized oh, you know what? Time is very limited, and you never know when your last day is going to be. So instead of living for other people, you should pretty much live for yourself and what you want. And I've fallen, I don't want to say victim, but I've fallen to the constructs of society of you have to reach A, B, and C to be seen in the world and be the good daughter, be the good mother, whatever it may be, whatever titles that come along with that. And so after cancer happened, I kind of realized oh, you know what? None of these things really matter because I can't take them with me. They're great on paper for qualification purposes for jobs or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, if tomorrow was my last day, like it wouldn't even matter. The things that would matter are like just living for what you want to live for. So that's why this book came about and everything. And I didn't think I could do it, but it just came to me.
Individuals, Belly, that I've talked to who never considered themselves to be writers, their own journey was so intimate. It was like begging to be written. And it was like the story started immediately in their head. They might have gotten the title. And all of a sudden, they started getting some ideas to write down. And it's all of a sudden, the book just came out. And I think some of the best writing we do is intuitive. And the best writing we do is not only based on lived experience, but it's something that comes through us. I'm a firm believer in this. I think being a cancer survivor, when you're that close, when it's a life and death situation and you become a survivor, I think it has the same type of effect on our values, beliefs, and priorities as with those individuals who have grieved catastrophic loss. And
Right.
I think you're right. I think it helps you really understand the value of living each day fully, not buying into societal constructs in terms of who we should be or who society thinks we should be. Because society, in a lot of ways, I think, Belly, teaches us limitation and not potential. It's like
Right.
there's all of these expectations that they place on us for success, for fulfillment, that are basically, like you said, externally constructed and are not based even remotely on the values that we may see for ourselves. So I think it's important to like kick back and, like you said, if today was the last day of my life, how am I going to choose to live it? Am I going to live
Right.
it according to
Right.
somebody else's expectations or my own?
I feel that we seek validation from society. And the most important thing about an individual is your own value within yourself without having to have those validations from what society says is valuable. Like I don't think it matters at the end of the day at all. Like, and I wish a lot of people would understand that because people's opinions matter, but your opinion about yourself is number one. Right. So the people criticize all the time. People have their whatever they want to think. But number one should be like what you think about yourself.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. And as long as you're living your life according to your own, self-described values, as
Right.
long as you're living a life of integrity, of honor, you're treating individuals with kindness and respect, and you're working from that moral fabric which you've constructed for yourself, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
It's an unshakable foundation. It's very much like solid. And when you come from a place of integrity, people always know where you stand and people will always trust you because there's no reason for you to like lie. There's no reason for you to pretend. So it's a very solid place to come from. It's very vulnerable, but it's also very grounding. If that's a better word for it.
Yeah, and it's very genuine too, because
Right.
I like people who show me very transparently who they are.
Right.
Um, I can align with individuals who are consistent, who stand in their beliefs, stand in their own power,
Right.
and share that willingly and, with integrity. A lot of people are intimidated by that type of
Yeah.
transparency. They don't know what to do with that. Um,
Right.
they can't attack it because that person is just being right out there with who they are. And in some
Right.
ways it intimidates them. The other thing, I think when we wear our beliefs on our sleeves, we become a target for those individuals who are threatened by that.
Absolutely. 100%. Like I totally believe that. And I feel like I have experienced that in my life. So
Yeah, I talking with you, I always look at like still waters run deep. I mean, there's a lot. I think that's happened with you and to you and that has shaped who you are today. But I think, and if you don't mind me saying this, probably makes you a little guarded at times. But
yeah.
but I think that's a healthy attitude to have. You don't want to go into a situation just immediately trusting somebody. You have to
Right.
be hyper vigilant and say, is this a person I want to be vulnerable with?
I always give people chances for sure. Like it's a blank slate until there's something that's suspicious. But overall, like I kind of go into everything with like clearness without like judging. And I try very hard not to judge, because I feel people also have their own guards up.
Yeah.
So I can see through a lot of that. And I try to make people as comfortable as they can whenever we have conversations. So it's a lot more honest
Yeah.
and right and transparent, like you said.
Yeah, and I think relationships in a healthy way should build gradually. We shouldn't just jump in with
Right.
both feet. We ought to check the pool to make sure there's water in it first before we jump
Yeah.
into it. And
Yeah.
that isn't in any relationship. So you work it gradually, you build up trust gradually, and that's the way it should be. And I think those make for long-standing relationships. So
Absolutely.
you mentioned your book, Belly Knows Best. I love the title.
No,
Um,
thanks.
and tell our readers what it's about and what you want them to take away from it.
The book is basically like a memoir, like travel through 9 cities. It talks about culture, it talks about people in the cities, like culinary, like how the city has started from the beginning and then the culinary scene. And it talks about like my journey and my narrative about what I was going through during that time in my life during the cities that I was visiting. And basically, I just want people to take away from it just like hope that you can start over and you can rediscover yourself in a different light. If you had asked me like 10 years ago, hey, did you ever write a book? I'd be like, why? For what? Like, would you travel to a place and start talking to strangers about like their lives and their communities and their families? I would be like, no, absolutely not. But the book healed a lot of pieces that I didn't know needed healing. And I found a bunch of like parts of me that I didn't know even existed. So what I want people to take away from it is just so that things can happen like randomly and you're like, wow, like I didn't know I had that potential in me. But it's like reaching beyond what you think your potential is, going beyond that kind of like ceiling.
Mhm.
So I just want people to read it, enjoy it, maybe go out to the cities that I've gone to and just maybe rediscover themselves if they're in a place of trying to find themselves or like people wait a long time to do things that they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, why not just do it now? What are we waiting for? I mean, that's exactly what I did. I just went for it and I didn't have like a plan, like a set plan. It just happened organically. Like some of the interviews that I had with people, I didn't even know these people. Like I just went in kind of blind, which made it very more authentic in terms of like just having conversations.
Where were some of the places that you traveled?
New York City, I went to Austin, Chicago, Minneapolis, New Orleans. I'm like starting from east to west. And then obviously I did LA for sure at Portland and then the North Shore in Honolulu.
That's quite a diverse set of
Right.
cities you went to. How did it help you personally? And again, why is travel important in terms of helping us to understand maybe how other cultures think and live as well too?
I mean, it's humanity, right? You see people and people have their experiences. And when you listen to what they've experienced, there is a sort of like relationship that you develop with them because you have conversation, right? Putting words to experiences or experiences to words that have happened to people and just being able to talk about it is probably the most honest thing that people can do in this world. Like sitting across from somebody and asking them, like, what was your favorite meal? And why was it your favorite meal? Like, what does that remind you of? Like, why is that so significant? And that is like a place of vulnerability that people don't realize that you kind of hit whenever you talk about things that are deeper than what's outside of the superficial, you know,
Mm.
world, I guess you want to say, because it's very deep and it's very personal. So,
Food is an intricate part of a lot of cultures and a lot of families. It's
right,
from generation to generation. Me, I'm half Lebanese, and food was a big part of our culture as far as bringing our family together, extended family, regarding decision making, celebrating accomplishments,
right,
and just as a way to celebrate. And when
right,
you came to my house, Billy, you had to have something. You know,
right. Yeah,
you had to have something, even if it was a cup of coffee and a cookie. You had to have
yeah,
something. You didn't leave without eating something. So,
right. Yeah,
yeah, that's a big part of culture. And I think even understanding somebody's favorite food There's probably a story behind that as well too. I think food and storytelling may go hand in hand.
Right, right. And then I feel like it's a very like peaceful place when you think back to a lot of things that maybe remind you of a space that wasn't so guarded, where you can be just yourself without having to put up any guards or to like have like people judge all the time. You know what I mean? So like this whole thing came about because I started cooking and at right after like chemo because or during I'm sorry, during chemo because during chemo everything tasted like metal. So, like, I had to, like, rewire my brain and, like, tell myself, "Okay, this is nutritious." I started off with my mom's egg rolls, and those would take me back to, like, when I was, like, probably 5 or 6. And so those are things that I've always remembered being in a really solid, happy place where it was just like, I'm just outside, like, having fun at the beach, learning about family, understanding it from this point, reflecting on it now, and looking back on it and, like, wow, like, okay, like, this is totally where I came from. Like, this is how we used to celebrate. We used to go out and have our little picnics and stuff at the beach, you know? We would be different than other families, obviously, because we would have a ton of Asian food, right? So, I mean, reflecting on that now, I'm like, wow, like, that was true culture and true, like, living in a different space of, like, where everything is American and your family is just not, you know?
Yep. 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 Yeah, I think that's a big part of any acculturation process as well too, is the food but also again, it's also part of the traditions that we create for ourselves as well too. So,
Right.
and I've seen some pictures of you on Instagram and social media, and inevitably there's a picture of you with food.
Right.
And
Yes.
so tell our audience how food became a part of your healing journey.
I had to rewire my brain and really take in what my belly wanted. That's why the book came about was Belly Knows Best, that's because everything that I had learned and what I had loved about food was something that I experienced in the past of just eating just to eat. This is what it is. And during and after chemo, I was like, I have to like develop a different relationship with food because of the fact that I need to know where it's coming from
Yep.
and like, why do I need it? Like, how does it make me feel? And it was a lot. It was like a different I can't even it's hard to explain just because of the fact that you learn things as you get older or as a kid and you're taught things. And then now it's like, oh, you can't, that's not the way you can think. Like you shouldn't think like that because that's not growth, right? That's not you maturing. That's not whatever the case may be. So for me, like I just remember finally thinking to myself, yeah, I need to learn how to cook. I really need to learn how to cook. I cannot do takeout anymore because part of cancer and stuff is also what you eat. And
Yes.
there's a lot of guidelines behind it about what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, and everything, and putting you through the ringer of what's healthy and what's not. I feel you should have a connection with food. You know, you should have a connection because it goes deeper than just the food in itself, right? Like it goes through culture, it goes through experiences and the conversation and people. So, I just had to learn and that's what happened. I just learned how to cook and I had to understand that this was for nutrition. This wasn't a sport.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I'm not knocking anybody for it. And food is great. And I feel like I do see a lot on social media these days where people are just gorging themselves, right?
Yep.
And we can even go deeper than that in terms of like, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to eat. So,
When we see people gorging themselves, one of the things I'll think of is the people that don't have the opportunity
right,
to eat. You look at the feed, we have a Feed in America initiatives all over this country.
right,
So
yeah,
that tells us that there are individuals that are food deprived or have food insecurity.
right,
Um, but the other thing is that a friend of mine told me, do you want to live to eat or do you want to eat to live?
right, yeah,
And there's a difference. And I think when somebody like yourself has dealt with cancer and has survived cancer, you also have to be mindful of what you're putting into your body. Anything with food with inflammatory properties, that can
right,
be a precursor to cancer resurfacing again. Doing heart healthy, antioxidants, And also whatever nutritional supplements that are anti-inflammatory. I know turmeric is one, and I know turmeric is used a lot in, I think, Indian cooking. So,
Right.
but it's just a matter of when you've had a life and death scare like you had, it's like that also gets reassessed as what am I putting into my body? Because what we
Right.
put into our body is fuel.
Yeah, it matters. When I was younger, like my parents owned a fast food restaurant. So like, that was what we ate. But my dad was a big person for takeout because both parents were working. They didn't have like time to cook for us. Our rotation would be Sizzlers. It would be like some sort of KFC fried chicken
Wow.
and then Chinese food. So it's like in Los Angeles, it was like this thing that we would do was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. One day would be pizza, the next day would be tacos, and then we'd just go around like that during the week. And my parents come from a very different place with food, right? Because they didn't have a lot of it when they were growing up, It was scarce. And my dad has always been the type that would be like the quote unquote like garbage can, right? He would like just take it all in if we couldn't finish it. And so that's when I learned a lot about their background about food, and I understood it a little bit better and why they had us eat everything off our plates. So,
Yeah, you make a good point. Past experiences, or whether it's early childhood experience or otherwise, not only dictates how we see the world, but it also dictates our relationship with food as well too.
right, right.
Especially if we're deprived, we want to take in everything because it's like a fear of not being able to get that again, among other reasons as well too.
Like everybody wants abundance, right?
Mhm.
That's like kind of like the carrot at the end of the stick. Everybody wants abundance, but like with abundance, there's like gluttony, right?
Yeah.
There's type 2 diabetes, there's like
Yeah.
cancers, everything that you can think of,
Yeah. And particularly when moderation is something that should be looked at. And then if you want to plan to like go off of your eating plan or eat unhealthy, make sure you plan it into your schedule and make
Right.
sure it's something good. Now, 10-year-old ho-hos from
Yeah.
the grocery store, make sure it's something decadent that you're truly
Yes.
going to
Yes.
enjoy and then get back on your eating plan again, along with the required amount of exercise and physical activity as well. So
Right.
I think all of that matters.
Yeah, I feel like moderation is very much key when talking about food intake for sure. I'm human. I have my days where I'm just like, God, I really want a donut.
Hmm.
And donuts are vastly available at my jobs. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
everybody's always bringing in some sort of like box of donuts, and 9 times out of 10, I'm like, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
I'll have one at the end of the school year.
Belly, one of the things that we talked about in our pre-chat was this whole concept of healing. So what I want to ask is, what does social media not get about the healing process?
I feel like in my experience that social media wants that instant gratification, that instantaneous, like I'm healed, but they don't see the different steps that you have to go through, like mentally, emotionally, physically to get to that point. I think that social media often celebrates transformation when it happens overnight. Healing to me is rarely linear. There's always some sort of setback. There are hard days. There's grief. There are things in our lives that are out of our control. So as we're healing through our trauma, there's other traumas that are probably happening around us. So that is a huge deal to consider. And it's never like it happens like that, right? It's more like a stepping stone. You go forward a little bit and then you go backwards a little bit and then you move a little bit more. So it's never a straight shot, which I wish it was sometimes because it's rough. Sometimes you fall back and you're just like, wow, like I got to start over again,
Yeah.
I got to try again. I got to do this again. So it's very hard, but it's doable.
And grief or any type of challenge isn't a linear process. Sometimes you take two steps forward, you take one step backwards, but you're still made progress because you're one step ahead.
Right.
And the thing is as long as there is movement towards re-engaging in life again, it's not going to be an easy process. It's not going to be a straight line process. But like you said, in this super positive society that we live in, where
Yeah,
individuals want really quick turnarounds or quick outcomes,
right.
it's after a certain amount of time, we're supposed to just package our grief, package our trauma, and then move on as if nothing ever happened. And
Right.
trauma changes us, transitions change us.
Right.
Divorce, death, it all changes the landscape of our world and demands, I think, that we
Right.
reevaluate who we are and what type of person we want to be moving forward. And as far as I'm concerned, there are people that have transitioned from the physical world to the spiritual world 20 years or more. And there's still
Mhm.
days I think about them. There's still days that I yearn for their presence. So healing isn't this type of, straight line journey that's time limited. It's
Right.
very much an ongoing process. I don't look at it so much as healing as we're constantly works in progress and we
Right.
constantly evolve to meet the demands that life throws at us.
Right. And with our pre-podcast, like we talked about how the word healing or healed has been like kind of like saturated within like the mental health community and just within social media in general. Like I just don't think that anyone is ever fully healed. There are always parts of us that we rediscover, and the perception that social media gives out to people,
Mm.
I think it's very not true.
Yeah.
If that's for lack of better words, like it's very Hollywood and it's
Yeah.
not. It's not pretty. It's just not like it's rough. And you have to go through it to get to the other side. And this is what I've told a lot of people that have gone through other traumas. I always tell them, you got to feel your feel. You have to feel if you want to cry, if you're angry, if you're whatever it may be, you got to go through it to get out to the other side to see that the rainbow, or the light or whatever it may be. Because if you keep that stuffed in, and you know this because you're a therapist, right?
Mhm.
So you don't feel those feels. It just festers and it becomes something that turns into something like not great. You don't grow from there.
Yeah.
You're stuck. So
Some individuals, if you ask them how they feel, can't tell you immediately how they feel because they don't have a vocabulary for that, because maybe
right.
they've been used to being in their heads. But if I ask somebody who operates within the world that way, tell me what you're thinking. And if they say, well, life sucks, then I can ask, well, how do you feel about that? What
Mhm.
what feeling? Then they can say, well, I feel disappointed. I feel angry. I feel disillusioned. Those are all legitimate feelings. But
Right.
sometimes individuals don't have a direct vocabulary for feelings. You have to kind of get to that another way. And I
Right.
think if you look at heteronormative relationships, men and women, traditionally, men have been known to work through their feelings through activity. They look at ways to distract themselves from their feelings. Women have been perceived to be more emotive, with their feelings and more prone to ask for support. Take a look at the men in my generation, like the baby boomers and the seniors. I mean, we came from the suck it up generation. The Gen Z males are a little bit more intuitive with their feelings, but for my generation, it was feelings were the enemy. Just take care of business, suck it up,
Right.
just work through it. But the bottom line is that men and women feel just as intensely. We just deal with it differently. And if we can understand that, we can witness that for each other and listen to that, we can hold space for that.
And I think that's part of it is being able to create this space for people um to really be able to express how they really feel truly without feeling like they have to be defensive
Mhm.
and like having to be guarded all the time. It's really okay because you may think that like one person hasn't gone through what you have gone through, but there's a million people out there that probably have. And
Yep.
they just haven't said anything about it, you know? And I really want people to understand that in terms of social media, especially, that like it's okay if you're having a crappy day. It's okay that sometimes you just want to punch something or like you're sad or you're depressed. I mean, we're human. It's part of our construct to have feelings, to have emotions, not just to put them away and be like, okay, I'll deal with that later, but it's rough for a lot of people to actually do that because they compartmentalize so much.
Yep. And it's that pressure to, I think, the external pressure that we talked about earlier to succeed.
Right.
Feelings over long term get in
Mhm.
the way of that, get in the way of the achievement oriented
Right.
messages that we get growing up. And that could lead to perfectionism,
Right.
um, not allowing yourself to be human in many cases because of that fear of not being perfect. But, the bottom line is that I think if we can embrace our feelings, it makes us more genuine and it makes us more productive. But to
Right.
deny our feelings is to deny a good part of who we are.
Right. Right. Everybody has a mask on.
There is such an overuse of the word healing, and particularly on social media, it gets so misconstrued. Here's the other thing, and my students talk about this, and I'm sure your students talk about this with you. There's so much comparison
Yes.
in the lives that goes on in social media, which impacts young adults' mental health. And one of the things of social media, and even though I think intellectually they know this, it still bothers them when they see somebody creating a life on social media that looks much better than theirs. But in reality, the person that's creating their life on social media is thinking, boy, I wish I had the life on social media that my friends are creating.
Right.
But I also think that comparison piece also, I think, stems from either individuals not talking about their feelings, whether
Hmm.
it's male or female, or simply not asking for help, because we know the correlation between overuse of social media and mental wellness challenges.
Right. And you don't really know the person on the other side, but you don't know what their struggles are, whether they feel fulfilled for sure, or they're just doing this to make a buck. And it's like, unless they put that out there, and we don't know for sure, like, are they really truly happy? Is this what fulfilled them?
Yeah.
Is there purpose behind what they're doing? Or are they just doing it so they can get clicks and likes?
Yeah, and you look at that, there's a lot of individuals measure connection on social media, particularly they use social media a lot through likes.
Hmm.
And likes doesn't mean anything other than I like what you posted.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's not going to lead to, I think, that deep seated connection for the most part, unless you have friends outside of social media.
Right.
So I suggest to my students use social media for a specific purpose. If you want to post a picture of stuff that's going on, don't put the intimate details of your life on there. Certainly don't vent on social media because though you may regret it and you delete it, somebody's going to screenshot it.
Right. Yeah.
And what if you're going to go to college and colleges take a look at your social media history, your social media presence, and they see all of these really off the cuff, negative, very inflammatory comments?
Right.
Don't you think that's going to play into the role in terms of whether or not they feel not only are you going to be a good student, but are you going to be a good ambassador for that school?
Right. Yeah. And presence on social media it's hard to like navigate through because you think you have freedom of speech until it's used against you. I feel like you have to be careful on social media. It's not a venting
No.
machine, like not a venting solution for like people. Write it down.
Or better yet, do a face to face conversation with
Do a
each other.
face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
Therapy is great, like works.
Or just simple conflict resolution. If I had an issue with you, I'm not going to air it out on social media and then say, geez, I got 5,000 likes because I could put Belly in her place. If I had
Right.
an issue with you, I'm going to give you a call and say, Belly, I need to talk. There's something that's bothering
Exactly.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's sit down and have a conversation. That's the way you do it.
Yeah. I agree. And I think we lack that in today's age because of technology and because of social media.
Mhm.
And we believe what we see is 100% true when it's like probably not even 20% true.
No.
It's like a solid minute out of somebody's 24-hour day,
Yep.
from an edit. Yeah.
And the other thing, I rely on technology a lot for a lot of things, but I balance technology with good face to face conversation. When I was a supervisor, when I worked in the addictions field, I would send emails to my staff saying you did a really good job with this particular client situation. Congratulations, or on the great work that you did. But I'd also try to follow it up with a visit. Okay.
Right.
And basically just sit down and just say, hey, I wanted to let you know how good things went with that situation. Because a lot of times things gets lost in emails, things gets lost in text messages. It's too an impersonal of approach. I think
Right. There's
that
no
face,
tone.
yeah, you
Yeah.
you make better connection face to face. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like just with my book, like I could have did everything via Zoom, but I didn't because post COVID, I feel like everybody has the weirdness in terms of interaction and having a conversation and sitting down with somebody and like looking into their, like just being in presence with another human being.
yeah,
And I felt like this is not the way it was before COVID, like people had to physically be there, do
yeah.
things, and actually have face to face conversations, not behind a screen. That just reinforced everything that I thought about just have people being people and just talking.
And that's the best way we make connection. And that's, I think, the best way we become understood is through face to face.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, for my audience, I'm going to do something a little bit different. When I emailed Belly the pre-podcast information with questions, she came back with a whole bunch of questions for me about the healing process. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Belly. I'm going to have you ask me those questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to reverse the role. I'll give you my reflections, and then we could simply have a back and forth. Go ahead and hit me with those questions.
So my first question is there something neurologically or emotionally that happened when we finally gave language to experiences that we've carried silently?
One of the things I've had guests on the program who talk about that once we redefined the early narrative of our childhood, particularly if those messages were ingrained repeatedly and reinforced, they've indicated that it does create permanent neural pathways in the brain that constantly will look to recreate those situations. So yes, I think something does change. If you take a look at breaking generational trauma, I think you talk about making certain decisions or the environment, the decisions that we make, the environments that we're in affecting, let's say, for example, our neural pathways and affect us genetically. So yes, I think emotionally, to answer the second part of your question, I think we get to a point in any journey, particularly when it's a journey of transition that's been born out of dealing with challenge, that we come to a crossroads where we say, do we want to live, to exist, or do we want to live with purpose? And I think that we come to an
Right.
emotional crossroads because we look at the way we've been living before and we're looking at this thing, we can't deal with this anymore. It's too depressing. It's not stimulating enough. So I think you make that decision. And I think coupled with that, I think that changes the way the neural pathways in our brain function. And so I look at it as kind of like a combination of environment and genetics, and environment affecting genetics, whether it's in the neural pathways of the brain or otherwise.
He has asked that because, you know, my son, I'm raising him very opposite of how my parents raised me. So his issues are like totally different from what I had when I was a kid. So it's like, I don't even, that's why I was asking about the neurological thing and the emotional thing, because I was like, so how do I make sure that he doesn't have these other issues? But it's like, I wouldn't even know how to address that because I haven't experienced it in my own life. So I don't know. It's so weird.
I think you're making a conscious choice. We take a look at generational trauma, Belly. You make a conscious choice to flip the script. A lot of times you'll hear individuals say, I am not going to, I'm going to do things differently than my parents did. So it's making a conscious choice to raise him differently, which if
Right.
that's the case, you're preventing those issues that surfaced in previous generations of your family from presenting here. Could there
Mhm.
be other issues beyond your control? Absolutely. Because
Right.
we live in a very polarized society. We live in a very overstimulated society where children are getting exposed to things that I didn't get exposed to until I was 18. And so there may be a certain set of issues that may come up for him that didn't come up for you. But as long as you're treating him with love, respect,
Mhm.
understanding, and not only being a witness but understanding what he is saying. One of the questions that I'm jumping ahead here is, do you think that being witness is as important as being
Mhm.
understood? If you're not
Right.
understood, I could witness you with a blank stare,
Right.
but if and I'm just witnessing you, but you need to know that I have understood what you said. And as a former therapist, I would do some active listening and say, what I hear you saying is this. So not only
Right.
witnessing the story, but also checking to see if I was listening accurately. And if I wasn't, giving that person an opportunity to to correct me.
Yeah, because I feel that if you're witness to something, it can also be perceived as something different if you don't have the same understanding, if that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Like I can watch you do something, but from my perspective, this is what you were doing. But maybe from your perspective, you were doing something totally not what I saw, you know?
Yep.
So it's hard to put into words though, like understanding somebody, it's like you really have to put yourself in their shoes and
Yep.
be there, be in that moment with them where you are like one with that situation specifically.
Yep.
Because I don't think anybody could ever put themselves in your shoes in terms of your loss and stuff, like my whole situation and stuff. Because even with different cancer like survivors or different ethnic groups, you can empathize, but you wouldn't. It's hard to be in that person's shoes because you didn't like receive it directly. It's like hard for me to explain it. Even talking about it, it's weird.
I think a lot of times we confuse understanding with agreement. Not saying
Right,
you and me, but I think a lot of people do that. I can understand, but still not agree with your perspective, but I can
right,
understand it.
right,
I can disagree with you on something, but if I ask you, tell me how you got to that perspective. Tell me what resources you've used. That's another way for me to understand where you're coming from, is
right,
asking those kind of questions. But now as the skeptic in me, I'm going to research that and say, okay, let's see what Belly sees in these perspectives. Now, here's the thing that happens if I choose to first understand where you're coming from and then research it. I may not agree with everything, but I might find one or two pieces of that perspective that are going to work within my existing belief system that I can take. So, though I
right,
may not agree with all of it, we're still going to find common ground. But if we
right,
don't take the time to understand each other and we just not choose not to listen, we witness with a blank stare, where we choose to judge, we miss some great opportunities to expand our own belief system and have an increased understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
right, right. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Let me ask you my next question. Do you think we've confused vulnerability with visibility?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
Just because
I
we're on social media, like with your podcast, with my social media stuff, and just try to like understand, wow, am I confusing the two? Like
yeah.
people see me and I'm talking my truth and I'm speaking my truth and everything, but is it valid?
Or is it performative?
Or is it performative? Right. Exactly.
I mean, for me, visibility, I think in that sense, now that you've cleared that up for me, and vulnerability, particularly on social media, doesn't go hand in hand. For me,
Mhm.
here's vulnerability. This is what this means to me. Being vulnerable is, let's say I have an issue that I need to deal with. I know that you have had a similar experience with the issue that I'm dealing with. So I am going to talk with you and say, Belly, if you don't mind, I need your feedback on this particular issue because from past conversations, I know you've dealt with this. Vulnerability means I trust you enough for that moment to realize that you're going to be a resource that's going to help me get through this moment. Vulnerability doesn't mean that we're going to have a long lasting relationships. It just means for that moment, I see you as a person who can help me through that moment. It's no guarantee of anything. But I think visibility, if you see people that are constantly supposedly speaking their truth on social media or otherwise,
Mhm.
take a look at the message. Is there anger attached to it? Is there negativity attached to that? Because I wouldn't look at that as vulnerability. I would look at it as being the way that they see the outside world as a reflection of how they see themselves. And that's not being vulnerable, that's projection.
Right. 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 It's very true.
Yep.
Yeah.
But performance art gets clicks.
Yeah. They do. They get a lot of clicks.
Yeah.
I just think it's like very difficult. I think in this day and age, people have this kind of like hold, right? Like once you're vulnerable, this is my experience. Whenever somebody talks to me about something, there is this immediate attachment, right? And I'm always like, I'm so like non-codependent like person. And so it's very hard for me whenever somebody is like kind of like clinging on. And it's very that's what I struggle with too. It's like, do you want me to see you or did you want me to be friends? Did you want me to hear you out? Like, it's like it gets confusing and convoluted because, you know, I don't necessarily want to be your friend, but I'm willing to hear you out. There's people at work that are like that. And I get it. Like people have codependency issues. And I don't know, like I've always been the type of person that's relied on my own. thoughts processed and everything. And I know that not everybody's like that. Here's a good example. So one of my coworkers, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go on vacation and stuff and whatever with my family. And I'm like, maybe you need a break to go by yourself or something, like travel alone. He's like, oh, I'm just not built like that. And he just started laughing because he's like, I'm just not built like that. I need people around me all the time. And I'm like, I get it, but I need some time to connect with myself.
Yeah, I think we all do. But it's good that you can set those boundaries, Billy.
Okay. My next question is, you've heard hundreds of life stories. What patterns have you noticed among people who have seem genuinely at peace?
I think their ability to surrender to their higher power, understand that the only thing they have control over is the present moment.
Hmm.
And I think those individuals are at peace also have a really strong skill in terms of being able to forgive what's been done to them. Maybe not necessarily forget, but forgive. And
Yeah.
more so forgiveness that helps themselves as well as the other person. And I think individuals, I think who have a strong connection to community, and it could be a virtual community, but I think it's more of an in-person community, whether it's a church community, whether it's a social group, whether it's a spiritually based group. They have that strong sense of connection to community. They also feel connected to something greater than themselves. They're very much aware of their limitations, what they can do
Right.
and what they can't do, and they're not afraid to ask for help. And, they're just and they also have just a good aura. These
Yeah.
are individuals that are good listeners, that are very, very respectful, very tolerant. They don't judge. They don't expect perfection. They just ask that you do your best and give it your best at all times.
Right.
And they accept you, I think, for who you are at that moment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that because I always like in the mornings, I'm always thinking to myself, like, okay, thank you, universe, for like another day, another opportunity, even if the day doesn't go well, like I'm just really grateful in general just to be here.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people take that for granted, because if they haven't gone through trauma, if they haven't gone through like a life and death situation, it's very difficult to not take it for granted. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, do I have any more questions? Let's see. Okay. I think I have this last question to ask you. And I don't know if you were the one who told me what your 90-year-old self would say to you, right? If you were sitting across from each other. I kind of rephrased it. I said, if your grandchildren listen to this conversation 50 years from now, what's the truth about being human that you would hope that they carry with them?
Being human doesn't mean perfection. It means being authentic. It means owning our mistakes. It means being accountable to other individuals when we make mistakes or when we treat them badly. And to look at mistakes not as failures, but to look at mistakes as opportunities to learn and to grow.
And then the next question is, you're sitting across from your 90-year-old self. What would your 90-year-old self say to you?
My
At
my 9-year-old self,
90-year-old.
90-year-old self,
Yeah.
okay, say to me,
Yes, right now.
um, first of all, I think my 90-year-old self would say that I am grateful for having made it 90 years.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, what my 90-year-old self would tell me? He would say, David, at 90 years old, I'm still learning. I'm still engaged. I'm still active. I'm still interested. I want you to do the same so you can catch up with me because the longer you can stay engaged, the longer you're going to live and the better your quality of life is going to be. So never stop being a student.
Yeah. Yeah. That's solid. That's very solid. I totally agree with you on all those points. I think somebody had asked me that. I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but they were like, if you had a conversation with your 90-year-old self right now, what would they say to you?
Yeah.
And I was like, good job. Like, you set out to do things that were out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and that's growth.
We don't grow out of comfort. We
No,
grow
don't.
by doing things that are different from what we're used to.
Right. Like people are stagnant for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big picture person. So when I see people, they can be maybe not the nicest person. I'm still going to approach you and ask you, hey, you good?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of, I guess, my way of trying to unarm people and be like, I'm not here to do anything bad. You know?
Well, a lot of times what we see on the outside is different from how they're feeling on the inside. A person who's
Yeah.
angry is actually may actually be hurting, and that anger just keeps people away so he doesn't get hurt anymore. So
Right.
you go up there and you do this repeatedly to say, "Hey, how you doing? Is there anything I can do to help?" And especially if you see this person on a regular basis,
Right.
eventually he may break down, and
Yeah.
you may develop a relationship with him. But it may take a few bites at the apple for us to do that.
Right. Right. But I feel like most people, all we want is to be seen and heard. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. We just want to know that we exist,
Matter.
that our life matters. Just something.
Right. Right.
Doesn't have to be big, but just something small, like just being acknowledged. Somebody
Right.
saying hi to us.
Yeah. I see that a lot within my classroom, like students that don't really have a conversation with their own parents. And they're like kind of very needy with me. And I give them their attention that they need, but you can see it. Since I've been in the game for so long, it's like, I'm like, okay, like mom and dad might not be home, you know,
Mhm.
but, and this is where they get to act out and somebody can pay attention to that, you
Yeah.
know?
Particularly, like you said, if they're not getting the stimulation that they need at home, and
Right.
they'll look for it elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, kids and parents need to talk, and we need to encourage that conversation. And
Yeah.
parents need to understand that school isn't about teachers fixing their kids. They need to take an active interest in that. So
We're not the parents.
no, you're not the parents. You are the teacher.
Right.
And you need to work collaboratively with that family to ensure that the lessons in the classroom are coming home, that they know what their child is learning, what their deficits are. It's a team effort in order
Right.
for that to happen. So how did
Yeah.
I do with the questions?
Great. Great. There's a
Good.
lot of clarity on my end for sure because I it's so hard for me to describe like preparing for this podcast, I was like, okay, let's really think about where you're at, like myself, and how did you get here? Because some days I'm like, okay, I did the work, I got here like
Mhm.
this, but sometimes it's unexplainable, right? Like, why do I still have these triggers? Have I not been like quote unquote healed from it? Did I not grow from it? You know, but I've been giving myself a lot of grace in terms of like taking like a couple steps back because I have to like maybe um revisit a little bit more, like things that I thought I was like over.
Mhm.
And it's not like when you're over something, you're completely done with it. It's just the way you react to it, I guess, from that point on.
The other thing is I found, Belly, as I've gotten older, my past keeps resurfacing.
Uh-huh.
And there really isn't anything wrong with that. For me, it's just, I think as we get older, we do a life review, whether consciously or unconsciously. And I think as I continue to grow in my present, my past is going to resurface because if I'm continuing to grow and evolve, that demands me to look at my past from that current perspective to see if I can further understand more about my past so that I can incorporate it into the present self. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, past is going to come up. It's part of who we are.
And I'm glad you said that because I've been, for me, like I reflect and I reflect and I'm like, okay, why are we still thinking about this? But you're thinking about this because you have now a different perspective about what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you actually said that with words because I was like, I thought I was over it. Like, but I'm not, you know, but it's a different lens. So,
Yeah. And Pema Chödrön, she's a Buddhist monk, and she said this. She goes, nothing ever truly goes away
right. I
until
believe
it
that.
has, yeah, until it has nothing left to teach us.
Right.
So if
Right.
something comes up, it demands that we look at it because your past is saying, I still got something to teach you. So let me teach it. Don't run
Right.
away from me
Right.
because understanding your past is going to give you perspective for living your present and orchestrating your future life. So,
Right. It's very deep. It's like when you struggle so long, right? For like, why am I like this? Like, why am I so different? Why don't people get me? And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, this is why, you're kind of different.
yeah,
So,
yeah, but we're all different, and that's what makes the world go around and what makes us unique. And if we witness and understand each other,
Right.
It's going to give us unique perspectives that I think will help make the world a more peaceful, tolerant, and understanding place.
Right. I totally agree with you on that, like wholeheartedly.
Now, Belly, before we wrap up, there's a couple of other questions that I'm going to ask you because we've
Oh,
covered a lot of ground today.
yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of good information that's going to have a lot of good impact for my audience. But I'm going to ask you if you wanted to leave our audience with one thing today that you want them to remember from this conversation, what would that be?
That it's never too late to reinvent yourself and to like go beyond what you thought your potential was. Like, be okay with being uncomfortable, like your comfort zone isn't going to always be the best space for you to grow.
Mhm.
Like reach for like beyond the stars if that's even possible. Like not everything that you perceive that you can achieve is right in front of your face
Yeah.
at all. Like sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and it just happens. And but it also doesn't, like I said before, like you mentioned it, like it doesn't rain every day, like the rain has to stop eventually. And
Mhm.
once you get all over to the other side of that, like it's an amazing place to be because you're so at peace with a lot of things. And it's just life just looks a little bit brighter.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. I mean, just keep moving, just
Right. Keep
don't
moving
give,
forward.
keep moving forward. Don't give up. And
Right.
that teaching reminds me of something that the late great drummer Neil Peart of Rush, who I believe in the later years of his life, he got remarried. He was living in Los Angeles, I believe. Um, but he wrote in his book, Ghostwriter Travels on the Healing Road, a book that detailed his journey after the tragic loss of his daughter and his common law wife 10 years, 10 months apart, where he said one of the things he learned through his travels is keep moving. Something will come up. Keep moving. Something will come up. To do that requires that we don't give up. Keep moving.
Right.
Because whatever darkness we may see, where there's darkness, there's light. It's a yin and yang. If we keep moving through the darkness, eventually we're going to find that flicker of light and we're going to
Right.
grab onto that and use that as kind of an anchor of hope
Yeah.
that we can transcend whatever challenges we're going through.
And the thing that you can't lose is hope. Like you have to have some hope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Belly, my last question for you. People want to get in touch with you. Follow you on social media. I know you got a big presence on social media. Purchase your book. What's the best way for them to do that?
So social media, my handles are all the same. Belly Knows Best on Instagram. Facebook is BK Knows Best. TikTok, same. Belly Knows Best. YouTube, same. And then my website, which is bellyknowsbest.net. And that's where you can also find my book on Amazon Kindle. There's a link on there, my website somewhere. I think it's on the front, the homepage. That's it.
And I will make sure all of your contact information, your social media handles get in the episode notes before we go live. But Belly, thank you so much for a great conversation today.
Thank you.
I truly enjoyed it. Hopefully we could do this again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. I would look so much forward to it because I feel like we can totally go deeper.
Yeah, I'm sure there's room for another episode somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you for the opportunity, Dave.
well, thank you for trusting me with your story and my platform and my audience. So thank you for that. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.